Hey, this is Dr. Lee Engel with Upper Cervical Health Centers. Today I want to talk about a topic that is prevalent in society and can really be a big problem. That's anxiety. A recent study showed that 1 out of 6 people in America take some sort of psychiatric, antidepressant, anxiety medication. Some studies, depending on the location, 6, 8, 10% of the prescriptions filled are very much for that same thing. And look, there are going to be multiple causes of anxiety. Sometimes it is some sort of actual life event. You're going through a divorce, someone dies, you have a job problem. Those things absolutely can drive anxiety, right? Environmental factors and things like that. But what I really want to talk about are for the ones where that's not really a thing, or it was a thing a long time ago and you can't seem to get out of that pattern. Or you might be a person that comes in and says, you know what, doc, everything in my life is great. I don't have any problems. I'm not financially stressed. My marriage is great. My kids are great. Everything is fantastic. I feel so anxious, I can't function, or I can't hardly leave the house, or whatever the manifestation of that anxiety may be. That's really the thing I want to talk about. So the biggest thing that will drive that anxiety is the nervous system. So if there's not anything else going on, the nervous system isn't doing what it's supposed to do. You may have heard the term fight or flight response. So there's two halves to our autonomic or our automatic nervous system, the thing we don't think about, not the nervous system that makes me move my arm, the thing that makes everything else function. So in there we have fight or flight, we have rest or digest, and they're exactly what they sound like. Fight or flight, we may not be actually out fighting or running, but if you're up during your day and moving around and doing things, that's going to be the more dominant system. It shouldn't be pegged way up here, that's where we run into trouble, but it should be the more dominant of the two. If you sit down to eat or you lay down to go to sleep, the rest or digest should kick up. So if you're the kind of person who lays down all night, no matter how long you're in bed or how long you are asleep, you wake up exhausted, this is probably the problem. That fight or flight is still dominant. Your body never gets into a full sleep cycle. It doesn't replenish its hormones, its neurotransmitters, and it doesn't repair itself. And eventually you sort of just ran out the other end, like you've had your foot on the gas for way too long and your car is kind of shot. So if it's that kind of thing, maybe it's social anxiety, whatever it may be, often that fight or flight is just running too hard and you never make the transfer over to rest or digest. And that's what we want to talk about here and how to maybe correct that. So obviously in what I do in chiropractic, that's going to be my biggest concern, is to correct that nervous system. I'll talk about that in a minute. There's a few things diet-wise we can do. So excessive alcohol intake, so serotonin, that's kind of the happy hormone, the thing that makes you feel better. Excessive alcohol intake will lower serotonin levels. Not good. That's not what we want. And sometimes, right, as a coping mechanism, maybe if we're real anxious and ramped up, we try to drink a little to bring that down, but actually it's counterproductive. Caffeine is the same, and sometimes you get in a vicious loop of, I'm tired all the time, I can't sleep, I'm just pounding coffee all the time. Again, lower serotonin levels. So a little bit of coffee is okay, but we can't get a ton and make that the major source of energy. It's just going to make the problem we're already dealing with much worse. We want to watch our sugar intake and make sure that you have balanced meals at a balanced time of day, because if you have a blood sugar crash, no matter what else is going on, immediately it makes you feel depressed, it makes you feel really tired, things aren't good, your body's not functioning right. We need level blood sugar levels, which means we're not going to intake a bunch of junky, fatty foods or sugary processed foods and then not eat maybe for 6 or 8 hours or whatever that may be, or just bad meals, because our blood sugar is going to be doing this, and if your blood sugar is doing this, your mood and how you feel is going to be doing the same thing. It's going to be up and down, up and down. And then we watch out for trans fats. We've all talked about those. That was a huge fad years ago, but those trans fats have been linked to depression and anxiety problems, and again, lower serotonin and dopamine levels. So processed foods and things like that. Just like in any medical condition or issue, a clean diet is going to make your system run better, right? And exercise. We need to get out and move a little bit. That gives us some endorphins, it gives us a hormone go, it helps level those blood sugar levels better. The whole body is going to function better. And then the biggest thing that I deal with in chiropractic, and especially in the upper cervical spine, so we have the brain that sits in our skull, and we have the brain stem, which is the tail end of the brain. It comes down a little bit in the top 2 bones of the neck. So that brain stem has a huge impact on that autonomic nervous system, on that fight or flight or the rest or digest. And let's say somewhere over the years there was a car accident, it was a slip, a fall, a birth trauma, whatever it may be. But if that area gets kind of jammed out of position and it starts to impact that brain stem, it limits blood flow a little bit, it starts to irritate the nerves in there, suddenly now it's not going to be able to regulate and balance itself the way that it should. Sometimes you get locked in the rest or digest and people are just completely shut down, but for the most part, the biggest thing I see is that fight or flight is just running all the time. The sympathetic nervous system, sympathetic dominance, we can't relax enough, we're jittery, whatever that anxiety may be, we can't sleep, tired all the time, and then we turn to maybe prescription drugs, right? Things that you're taking, serotonin reuptake inhibitors, SSRIs, those are to block serotonin from getting reabsorbed so the levels are higher because they're low. But I've found in here that if we clean up the diet, we get some exercise, and we make sure that the nervous system doesn't have any pressure on it, those serotonin levels will do what they're supposed to do and balance out on their own. I'll give you a good story. I had a girl come in, she was 15 years old, previous in life, very outgoing, a lot of friends, went to school, played sports, did things, very active. She had a fall, she was in a car accident, and then suddenly she became very reclusive. She couldn't hardly leave the house. She had to quit school because she would just go into panic attacks every time she had to go. I mean, it even expanded to the point where she started to cut herself, and she couldn't figure out why. She had a great family, she had a great life. There was nothing else wrong except internally. Her mom brought her in. We found a big misalignment up here. We corrected it. And we watched all of that start to fade off. She quit cutting herself. Suddenly she had a big smile on her face. She got back into school. She's been in college and graduated, married, and has kids. So it's a great story, and we see that over and over. But if we have a problem going on, we've got to figure out, and especially if it's not, again, not environmental, it's not that something in your life is terrible, everything is reasonably okay. We've got to look internally and figure out what the problem is, what do we need to do to correct it, and then correct it. Generally, the body responds, and we will do much, much better. So if that's you, I would look into this avenue and at least be evaluated to find out if there's a problem here, and we can look at the rest of the lifestyle and see what we can do to help you.